This episode made possible by American Express, committed to sustaining history and making it accessible for generations to come. Also, the Discover New Jersey History License Plate Fund. History is always ready to be discovered in New Jersey. Every day, thousands of motorists pass by countless history markers and say to themselves, one of these days I'm going to stop and read that. One of these days I'm going to find out what happened and why it mattered. Well, this is that day. Here's a riddle for you. I'm headed to a history marker that details something I'm sure you've heard, but I'm also completely sure you've never seen. What is it? You're about to find out. I'm Ken Magos, and this is Drive-By History. This history takes me to Wall Township, New Jersey, a suburban corner of Monmouth County. The community has an unexpected story to tell, involving the inventor and entrepreneur, Guglielmo Marconi, and the answer to my earlier riddle, wireless radio waves. In the early 20th century, people were both mystified and amazed by radio because of its intangible nature. And the inventor most often credited with its discovery was Guglielmo Marconi. Here's the sign I was looking for. Let's take a look. Marconi American Wireless Company, 1913 to 1924. Presented here is only a small top portion of the original tower. There were a number of these towers in this area. They constituted the first commercial transatlantic communication installation. What was Marconi's concept for this new technology? And did it play out the way he imagined? I'm off to find out. In its infancy, radio must have seemed like something ripped from the pages of an H.G. Wells novel. It provided an immediacy never before thought possible. To find out more, I'm off to the Guggenheim Library, housed in this mansion, the former summer estate of Murray and Leonie Guggenheim on the campus of Monmouth University, where drive-by historian Anthony Bernard is taking this scientific milestone and putting it under the microscope. Anthony, I just came from a history marker that talks about the Marconi American Wireless Company and one of the many radio towers in the area. Now, I'm curious what you were able to find out about this.
Well, as you remember, Guglielmo Marconi had a close connection to our region. Some of his most important accomplishments took shape right here.
I do remember from a previous investigation, we found out that he had sent a wireless signal from offshore to Twin Lights, and that was the first wireless signal received in America.
Good memory. A few years later, Marconi set up a company which sent and received wireless messages. The tower you saw was part of that. What Marconi envisioned to be a worldwide network of communication.
He was thinking globally?
He was, almost from the beginning. He got his start in Europe, working on a device that could transmit bursts of radio waves. He spent his early career figuring out how to send those bursts of radio waves over longer and longer distances, ultimately across the Atlantic Ocean.
And what year was that?
That was 1901. And the accomplishment was truly historic because, until that time, scientists believed that because of the curvature of the Earth, it wasn't possible.
So Marconi invents wireless communication over long distances. That's why we think of him as the inventor of the modern radio.
We do think of him that way, but he wasn't the only one that invented radio. Marconi won the race, so to speak. That's how I look at this history. To your point, however, Marconi's work was groundbreaking. He received many awards, including the Nobel Prize in Physics. But in my opinion, we think of Marconi as the sole inventor of radio because of the Titanic. The ship had a wireless on board. Over 700 lives were saved because the Titanic was able to radio for help.
700 lives, that's staggering.
A British official was quoted as saying, "Those who were saved through one man, Mr. Marconi, and his marvelous invention." That's why I think he's known today as the sole inventor of radio, but there were others.
So he upstages anyone else working in the same field. Did he upstage anyone in particular?
He definitely did, and it did not sit well. There was a rival who took issue with Marconi in a big way.
Really? I'm intrigued.
I'm glad, because that's where this next investigation begins.
To find out more, Anthony sends me to Shoreham, Long Island, to a location that was recently saved from demolition. I'm greeted by Dr. Bryan Field, a professor of physics at SUNY Farmingdale, who tells me this site is the Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe. No, it's not named for the car company, just the opposite, in fact. The car is named Tesla as a nod to Nikola Tesla, the inventor who toiled here. Not a familiar name today, over a century ago, Nikola Tesla was widely known for an array of inventions. Though no beloved gadget was developed here at Wardenclyffe, restoring this location and making it a sustainable historic site is critical, because we now understand ideas were developed here, ideas that laid the foundation for discoveries that would follow. Just like Marconi's workshop and Edison's lab, Wardenclyffe is also a birthplace of modern technology, with Nikola Tesla a force of nature, brilliant in thought and relentless in his desire to trounce the competition.
There was a long-term rivalry between Marconi and Tesla, and it came down to essentially who had invented radio first.
Although Marconi built the first working radio, Tesla claimed that the invention was rightfully his and that he held the copyright.
Tesla would claim Marconi had built it out of components that Tesla had invented, so he always considered the radio to be one of his inventions.
The rivalry was intense, and history suggests it influenced decisions made by Tesla for the rest of his life. Like Marconi, Tesla was renowned for his engineering skills, as well as his spectacular imagination.
Tesla had this amazing mind. He was able to visualize products or inventions and completely rework them in his head.
His talent drew widespread interest as well as substantial investment. Some of the most influential figures of the time partnered with Tesla.
He was able to get a large investment from George Westinghouse, which allowed him to perfect a kind of polyphasic motor, a kind of thing that was able to generate AC power.
Tesla transformed the world with that innovation. In fact, it's because of Nikola Tesla that you have AC power in your home today. The discovery made Tesla famous and rich. He received royalties as well as a generous retainer.
And Westinghouse later bought the patents outright from him for an even larger sum of money, about $216,000.
That was a lot of money back then.
Absolutely, a lot of money now.
Committed to invention, Tesla put his time and now his money toward new experiments. Science was evolving rapidly, and despite his wealth, Tesla needed even more funding. He found a new partner with deeper pockets, another name we know, John Jacob Astor.
Everyone knows of Astor as a real estate magnate, but he was also a small-time inventor. He invented handbrakes on bicycles, and he had a few patents to his name, and he wrote a science fiction novel in 1894 called A Journey in Other Worlds.
Both futurists, the collaboration between John Jacob Astor and Nikola Tesla involved a range of experiments. Perhaps most notable, tests involving a way to send electric power through the air with no wires whatsoever. It might sound incredible, unbelievable even, but Tesla could see it in his mind's eye. Ultimately, he achieved what he set out to do. The year was 1900.
He had developed this technique for powering, say, light bulbs without any wires. They would just turn on and they would turn off, but not connected to anything.
Tesla believed the promise of this new technology would change the world and presumably dwarf Marconi's work. However, it was only effective within a limited range. Tesla was convinced he could perfect the science and extend the range considerably.
He wanted to scale up that process as a way of lighting cities without power. He also wanted to leapfrog over Marconi.
Tesla had big ideas. The size and scope of his vision had no bounds. It did, however, have a cost. And a falling out with John Jacob Astor left Tesla in need of another investor. Again, someone with a big bank account.
He ended up in the orbit of J.P. Morgan, the famous banker, who eventually loaned him the money to build this place in exchange for 51% of all of his patents.
In 1901, Tesla moved into this Long Island laboratory called Wardenclyffe. Designed by famed architect Stanford White, Tesla created a home base that, in his own words, was to have a grip on the Earth so the whole of this globe can quiver. For years, Tesla worked tirelessly on his technology, 100% confident he was on the edge of a breakthrough. And as his work progressed, he became confident that he could do even more than transmit words and pictures.
He also envisioned being able to power anything on Earth from this laboratory.
Okay. Ultimately, Nikola Tesla's science demanded the construction of a transmission tower that soared high into the atmosphere. A crisscross of steel lattice weighing 55 tons, the beacon blossomed into a dome at its peak. The tower at Wardenclyffe promised to be the very future of communication, and again, Tesla needed more money.
Tesla's plans became a little bit too grand.
J.P. Morgan refused to provide Tesla with even one more dollar. Though money continued to flow freely into Marconi's work, no other big financier wanted to get involved with Tesla. Perhaps they could sense he was ahead of his time, and in the early 1900s, Tesla was way ahead of his time.
Tesla, as brilliant as he was still a product of his time. The science that he was banking on, we now understand, is incorrect, and eventually the laboratory had to close.
Just a decade after it opened, Tesla's laboratory began to shut down. By 1915, reports described Wardenclyffe as abandoned. 2 years after that, the tower was dismantled for scrap to help settle debts. Although Tesla continued to invent, he would never again know the kind of success he experienced in his youth.
He sort of ended his life with a whimper rather than a bang, being more or less forgotten in his lifetime.
Clearly, Marconi won the race. He has a Nobel Prize, a gold medal, and a museum dedicated to his work. But Tesla has a place in this history as well. Hopefully soon enough, this Tesla Science Center will be a testament to his great work. Tesla would ultimately receive some vindication. The Supreme Court upheld his radio patent claims against Marconi, although the decision came a few months after his death. Later, a unit of electric measurement would be named the Tesla in his honor. And as the day draws to a close, I can't help but reflect on the legacy of Nikola Tesla. How does science view him today, particularly within the context of all that happened here at Wardenclyffe?
What he was trying to do in this exact location didn't work, but it changed the way people thought of the future.
Future generations will study the history of technology, and thanks to preservation efforts underway right now, one of the historic sites they'll surely turn to will be the Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe.